Hello friends, I welcome you on behalf of Kalam IS in the series of world history. So this is another series, another lecture. In the first, in the like two lectures, what we did was related to the French Revolution. Then we started off as an American War of Independence. The time period was 1776 of American War of Independence. Then we move on to the French Revolution, that was 1789 till 1799. So in the same time period, we had a lot of revolutions, not necessarily wars and all, which we generally associate with the industrial world or with the world polity and geography. The point I'm trying to make is, what are the other things which were going on? Mind you, there is a connection between French Revolution and American War of Independence. Similarly, there's a connection between World War I and World War II, the Cold War, and the Industrial Revolution. So if you have to understand the international relations in the present context, then you have to understand the Industrial Revolution and the insecurities, the securities, the issues, the causes, the effects it have had in the future to come. Mind you, I said the origin of Industrial Revolution starts off in 1760s, and Britain is the mother of Industrial Revolution. The map on my back shows a kind of causes and a geographical what do you call it, a pictorial illustration of what might have happened in history. What we deal is kind of things which were written and certain things which were interpreted. So it's a kind of interpretation also, and certain facts which I'll put forward in the course of my lecture. So let's get started. The areas which I'll be talking about are first, this area. This is United Kingdom, or Britain is called as the mother of the Industrial Revolution. First thing first. So this is UK, or then in it flourished. As you can see, it's the cradle of Industrial Revolution. Cradle means where the Industrial Revolution originated. There are certain things which were associated with Industrial Revolution. They are invention of steam engine, invention of wool machine, spinning machines, invention of electricity, invention of various other things like automobiles, railways, and all. So let's get to it one by one. So origin of Industrial Revolution starts from here in 1760s. Mind you, this is the time period when we have the origin or inception of steam engine. Where is it used? Steam engine can be used in the factories. It can also be used in railways. It can also be used in small, medium enterprises. So it started off here, then it industrialized by 18th, because these all nations we called as the first world nations in the present context. So it starts off there, then it reaches Germany, it reaches France, it reaches Italy, it reaches parts of Russia in the 19th century. So this is a kind of chronology. In history, we have to deal with chronology. So in the world history also, we need a kind of chronology. So this is roughly the chronology where we see that James Watt invented the steam engine. Then we see in 1740s, 1760s, new tools for agriculture production were coming up. Mind you, if you look at the Indian history also, there we see that technology of gunpowder, technology of sickle or hoe played a very important role in the evolution of agriculture, even in India. Earlier, we used to use wooden plow, but when iron came, it increased a lot of production. Then Mahajanpadas came in 5th, 4th, 3rd century. Okay, and in the course of evolution, we see with the coming of Mughals in Indian history, we see a lot of changes coming up in taxation, production, military technology, art and architecture. So it's a kind of gradual evolution which is going on in European society in which time period? 1740s, 1760s. Please look at these pictures very carefully. It will make you understand what are the things which are important for the industrial production. So what industrial production does is it gives you more a scale. A small company of 10 can make can produce more than a 1 or 2 persons in a family. We call it guild. In 100 like in a factory where we have 100 people, they can do more production if they have good equipments. It's similar as the small, micro and enterprises which we often hear in the Indian parlance, Indian scenario. So this is the first industrial revolution. Then we had second, third and fourth industrial revolution is associated with AI. Anyway, starting from the very start, so new agricultural tools like this, which we also see in Kolkata in late 1920s. Steam engine plays a very important role, and all these things lead ultimately to industrial revolution, and the end of it is by the inception of the aeroplane by Wright brothers in 1920s, which revolutionized the way we look at communication or transportation. So it starts off as railway communication or telephonic communication, or those communication which play a very important role in infrastructure. Mind you, in 1850s, Indians also got hold over railways. So it was for pure commercial purposes of Britishers, but it had long-term impacts on the polity, on the economy of Indian society after independence also. Anyway, coming back to the lecture. So in 1712 we see Thomas New Commons steam engine. Then we see water frame spinning machine, which is kind of incentivizing more, which you can produce more, and this raw material was coming from the colonies that were Southeast Asian colonies, American colonies as well as Indian colonies. So in 1780s we see iron smelting machines also coming up. So iron plays a very important role for the construction of railways, construction of bridges, construction of roads also. 1760s we have James Watt steam engine coming up, and 1779 we had Samuel Crompton's mule spinning machine. Before this, the production, the manufacturing of clothes was not scalable. Means there were only few people here and there who were doing productions. But after the spinning machine came in 70s, and the raw material was coming from India and African colonies and Southeast Asian colonies, it kind of increased the scale of production, and which ultimately led to more production. So here we can say that there was a gradual shift from the feudal mode of production till capitalist mode of production, where we had more banks coming up. More banks means more money was being flown. More money being flown means more people got the capital, and they had to invest in the infrastructure, be it railways, be it more companies, or what do you call it, more scale machineries and stuff. So the Industrial Revolution was a transformative era that transformed the societies from feudal agrarian economies till capitalistic and industrial systems as we go along. Then, as I said, it originated in Britain in 1740s, 1760s. Then, in the core of this, witnesses a paradigm shift from handicraft production to mechanized manufacturing units, which can produce more with an advancement in the technologies. Which are the technologies? These are the kind of technologies. Sounds very crude. Coming off of AI led to disturbance in the economic way, because now machines can do more. The similar ways, handicraft industries was kind of shaken. was kind of disturbed by coming of these machineries. Then what is a feudal mode of production? Feudal means in Hindi it's called samant, means now you have people who are the owners of the land from eternity. Their fathers were the owners of the land or the means of production, means the land, labor, capital. Then their sons, and then so it kind of changed, where we see more people were taking risks. Banking systems were coming up, starting from Flanders in Europe, and now new people, like not only the people who are having hereditary money, the people who are in today's world we call it startups. So the people who wanted to start their own business can have access to money, and businesses and money flow goes hand to hand. Anyway, the Industrial Revolution profoundly reshaped the social and economic structures, reorganizing the industries. Well, when we say that reshape the society, then we see that when there is a kind of shift, transition is always disturbing for the society and economy. Disturbance in the sense, post 1990s in India, we see that there is a lot of FDI coming up in India, but at the same time we see a lot of inequalities also. So same happened in Britain also, and the European continent. In 1848 they also saw a Marxist revolution, which Karl Marx says that the society is divided among the haves and have-nots. The haves being the bourgeoisie, and the proletariat means the working class. We'll explain this in a little further. So this is a kind of a picture you can see, which shows that here there are factories in Britain, and these ships are bringing raw material from the colonies and exporting the finished goods to the colonies. Sounds very crude, looks very old fashioned, but that's how it started in 1760s. In 1760s and 2024 where we are sitting, so it is if I may calculate it, it's more than 250 100 years ago, more than that. So that's how it has been started. So Industrial Revolution was a period of rapid industrialization in the late 18th century, means 1760s. You have to start like this. It originated with the introduction of machineries. I just showed it to you. Factories, as you can see here. I'll show it to you in greater detail also. So, and manufacturing processes ushering a profound economic and social changes. So, what are the causes of Industrial Revolution? Very important point is surplus. When we are in a hand-to-mouth economy, when we are just producing, or sustainable agriculture is happening, where you have a patch of land and you are just producing, and after that you are eating, and that's it. There's no surplus production. Even surplus production led to inception of trade, starting of trade, even in Harappan times. So the similar way, when we had more production, surplus production in Britain, the reasons can be multifaceted. Like they had more raw materials, because the Britain was the mistress of seas. France and Britain had a lot of colonies, so they had surplus wealth because of the increase in trade and commerce. So they were bringing raw material from India, from Africa, from Southeast Asia, and exporting or selling it in Britain, in Portugal. So they were having surplus money. So as I said, the revolution in trade and commerce brought into existence a class of capitalists who were constantly seeking new opportunities to invest their surplus wealth. As the people who were posted in India were called nabobs. Sounds like Nawab. So these capitalists or these nabobs were bringing money from the colonies and investing in new ventures, be it new factories, be it new manufacturing units, or be it investing money in stock markets. Still we do that. As a result, increasing amount of money were made available for growth of manufacturing. If somebody is starting up his manufacturing unit, he needs money for startup. We call it angel investors nowadays, but back then it was the capitalist class. Anyway, coming back to the this thing, population grew. The population growth met with growing industries because the demand was increasing more and cheaper labor was coming up. From Britain, to Britain, we had when we see more money was there were more people needed. See, in metropolitan cities like Bombay, Mumbai, Delhi, there is more cheaper capital available because there is more population. More population means more demand. More demands means demand for infrastructure till basic goods. We need everything, and for that we need labor. For industry we need labor. So this is how it is being related. And on top of that, there was also a political will associated with the industrial revolution. What was that? The British government was also influenced by the commercial as well as manufacturing interest, and as a result it fought other countries for market and colonies. What are those colonies? India, Africa, and Americas. So if we look at it very carefully, then we see that India was the colony associated with Britain. Africa was also the colony associated with Britain, and not to forget Americas. In the recent past, we saw this because it's a kind of series. You can go back to that where I was talking about the American War of Independence, because America was the colony of Great Britain. So another factors were demand. 2, 3, and 4. Fourth point is inventions of Hargreaves, Crompton, James Watt, Cartwright enabled new technologies. What are these technologies? I'll just show it to you again. See, Cartwright invented this, which was power loom. Very important. Why? Because it kind of scaled the way they were producing. Earlier they were producing for only 5 or 10 people, but now they can produce for 100 people. So if you have 2 people working for this and you have 20 or 30 odd machines like these, you can produce for 3,000 people. And you have 100, then you can count. It is having a multiplier effect. So these are the kind of inventions which took place. Then we had a demand for infrastructure, which is my 5th point. All along with the coast, the British had established ports. Why were ports needed? From ancient India to modern world, because we want to have a trading relations with rest of the world. So along the coast we had ports. So starting from Manchester to Liverpool to London, so all these cities somewhere or the other were linked to major ports. And these were kind of Lancashire. So making it simple to conduct both internal as well as external trade. In the modern world, we see ports still play a very important role. So on top of that, the banking system in Britain played a very important role, as it provided for the necessary capital and financial support for establishing factories. Still, we need venture capitalists. and we need people who can invest so that we can erect big industries, scale them, give them people, the laborers more salaries, give them more infrastructure, in the sense that we can give them more better technologies so that we can scale up the production, starting from Apple till Rolls-Royce, or everything we are talking about in the modern world, starting from Ford, which started off in 1920s, and Mitsubishi, which makes infrastructure nowadays, started off as a tank. They used to make tanks in the Second World War. Anyway, so state support is also very important. If you want to have foreign direct investment, then we have to have sanction from or permission from the state or central government. The state supported industrial revolution, and here we see a very important term called laissez-faire, which was educated by Adam Smith, father of the modern economics, and Ricardo. So you might have heard these things in the NCERTs. So laissez-faire means a kind of free trade where we have little or no barriers, because we want to have more trade with other nations, and goods and services had to be moving in without any hindrances. So availability of raw material and easy market access was also very important, because as I've talked about the raw materials from, so we used to call it black pepper, the pepper. We had spice trade with the Britain. We had trade relations in as far as cotton is concerned, tea is concerned, opium is concerned. There were a lot of wars, like Opium War, which was fought between Chinese government and the British government in 1920s. So all the wars took place because of the raw materials, and there was a scramble of resources of Africa, which ultimately the imperialist forces led to the First World War. Whatever the causes may be, if you don't understand the basics of these things, you won't understand the German unification, you won't understand the causes of the First World War. If you don't understand the First World War, so it becomes very difficult to understand Second World War and subsequently the Cold War. So these things are in a series. Please understand them in a chronology. Anyway, so British colonies, I don't want to name them again. What are the colonies? India, China, Africa, America. So all these colonies were supplying raw material to them, and also offered markets for their finished goods. That was the main concept of Swadeshi movement, where we see that British owned cheap goods were flooding the Indian market. So this was all because of the industrial revolution, which was starting off in 1760s in Britain. So all this facilitated the industrial revolution by ensuring the availability of resources, sources, and demand for products. So what they were doing is they were developing their industries, and on top of that they were using our resources and sending those finished products to our nation. Innovations and technological advancements. So this is the technology. This is a machine which looks very crude, but the point is it's spinning. You can spin cotton in this and produce more things, more clothes. So becomes very important. So this is the industries. Hop pot, pottery, middle pot pottery. So one of the very oldest industries, roughly started off in 1720s. Started off in 1720s. So it's a pottery. So there are certain terms you must know. Crockery, porcelain. So potteries became very important, porcelain cloth became very important, crockeries became very important because there was a rich merchant class or bourgeoisies coming up, which who wanted more. We became more consumer centric. So in the modern world, we see that a certain section of the society needs more sophisticated products like potteries and the Indian and Chinese pottery were very much in demand. But what they did was they started off these things even here, and we see furnaces, iron furnaces coming up. Iron furnaces became very important because we needed more railways, we needed more bridges so that the countryside can be linked with the metropolitan cities. Even it started off in 1770s in Britain, in London, in Lancashire, in Manchester, in Liverpool, and it expanded in expanded in India, where we see in 1850s. Development of railways, development of telegraph, and development of many other things. So cotton textile industry. What are the innovations and technological changes? Let's reiterate the fact that the invention of the flying shuttle accelerated the process of weaving a loom, which earlier was done by hands, is now being done by machines in a scale. Then we had this resulted in yarn shortages until 1768, when James Hargreaves, which I just showed you the picture of, spinning jenny perfected by Hargreaves, enabled spinners to produce yarn in a greater quantity. Water frame spinning machines by Richard Arkwright, which can be powered by either water or horse. So water was used, then turbines were used, then gradually things started off taking up. Anyway, Crompton's mules, which combined elements of water frame and spinning jenny, increased yarn production. And not to forget Power Loom by Edmund Cartwright in 1780s, the weaving of fabric was able to keep up with the spinning of yarns. And what are the time period we are talking about? 1780s. And till this period we had more production units coming up in Bengal, so before these things were coming up, the more production India, Robert Crusoe is a poet who says that in 1760s, when India was facing industrialization, then 19th century we faced deindustrialization, that Indian cloth is everywhere. It's there in a closet, it's there in our washrooms, it's everywhere, because the hand spun fabric of India, be it porcelain, be it cotton, be it muslin, malmal we call it, it's everywhere. So there was a kind of demand for Indian cloths, but gradually when these things took up in 1780s, there was a kind of scale. Okay, and it kind of it led to trade of wealth. It ultimately led to deindustrialization in India. The textile industry stimulated other industries such as dyeing industries. So we had indigo being produced in India, bleaching and printing. Then we had a revolution in transportation and communication. Improvement of bridges, as I was reiterating the fact, were made early in 1700s and helped to transport raw materials and factory made products in their destinations. Because if you need a scale, you need scale in everything, and you have to transport it. So it needs railways, it needs bridges, and what is the best thing, that if you have technological wherewithal, you can all do that. So it was happening, which because everything amalgamated, the steam engine, the production things which were happening through machines, the electricity, telegraph, everything revolutionized. So it was not a single thing which it happened overnight. It was a gradual process where the starting from 15th century, when we had scientific temperamental revolution, then gradually there was revolution in France and German unification, then we had Britain coming up with industrial revolution along with imperialism. So it had it was bringing raw material, and it was also developing its transportation infrastructure and other things. Stephenson built the first steam locomotive engine in 1814 to run railway tracks. Electricity was now commercially available and used to power the factories. The inventions of telegraph and telephone made it possible to communicate. So in this age of a modern world, we kind of negate these things, but back then in 250 100 years ago, we cannot even think about those things. So that if we go back to the world history, then we see that everything was a gradual evolution. So then let's bring it back to different worlds, where how do we perceive these things in different continents. Like we started off with Britain, then let's see that what happened in Americas. So as I was talking about what happened in Europe, so in Europe we had Britain, we had a revolution, then we had revolution in Americas, which I took up in the last class. So the industrial revolution in USA started off in 1770s. In 1776, they had their relations, which kind of became sore, and American War of Independence took place. But after that, or before that, they were kind of father and son relations between them. Though there was a kind of rebellion from the British forces, but a lot of students from Americas used to go to Britain. A lot of businessmen used to go to Britain. A lot of poets used to go to Britain. So there was a kind of communication channel being opened every time when it comes to Britain as well as USA. So the impact of industrial revolution in Britain also impacted the American masses. So it started off soon after Britain. The industrial revolution also started in USA for more than a century. This revolution involved major changes in manufacturing, in transportation, and in communication, and transformed the daily lives of Americans. There were certain military factors also, since Americans were not involved in major wars before 1940s, when they had Pearl Harbor attack, 1940s. But before that, since Americas is isolated and there were no major technological advancements in fighter jets, Americans got time to evolve. Americans got time to grow. So what are the factors? Embargo Act of 1807. It prohibited American merchant ships from leaving from foreign ports, and prohibited foreign vessels from carrying American goods out of American ports. That means there was a kind of protectionism from the administration of American Parliament, so that let us grow in the 18th century, let us follow the policy of isolation which Britain followed in 18th century. So Americans were forced to start producing more of their goods because they couldn't access foreign goods. Reasons I've told you, and I also reiterated these reasons, because of the protectionism measures and war with Britain. Natural resources. America is blessed with all the natural resources, starting off from Appalachians till Miami in the south. They have cotton production, they have wheat production, they have meat production, they have glaciers, they have water resources, Niagara Falls, of course. So they have rivers. So they are blessed with metallic resources, polymetallic nodules also. Then we had railways. Railway networks in USA promoted the growth of industries like coal and steel. You see, from Detroit till eastern coast till western coast, America is blessed with coal. America is blessed with other resources, and what it did was it speeded up the transportation of these goods from the market and encouraging mass production, mass consumption, and economic specialization. What is economic specialization? In 1920s and 1880s, there was a kind of big businesses coming up. So in American psyche, innovation was there from 1880s, starting from Henry Ford. Henry Ford was among the first person who started off with cars. And 100 years before, we cannot think about those cars going here and there in Washington DC or in other cities of Americas. Abundant labor supply, a significant number of foreign workers were drawn to United States because it was called a land of opportunities. Be it Spanish, be it French, all people were drawn to Americas. And we call it big American dream starting from then. So laissez-faire politics. Businesses were able to thrive and grow at a rapid pace due to lack of government's regulation. Since the area was vast, there was no insecurities, there was mammoth or abundance of resources, so there was a kind of scramble of it, and there was nothing like insecurities among people. So innovation of technology, Samuel Slater, an English mill operator, helped Moses Brown establish the first water-powered textile in Americas in 1790s. Means the producer, the innovators of Britain were going to Americas. Mind you, I said there was a relation of son and father between US and Britain. So these are the effects of that. So he was referred by Andrew Jackson as the father of American Industrial Revolution. Father of American Revolution, American Industrial Revolution is a British. So that's what I'm trying to say. In 1793, A.T. Whitney invented cotton gin. The telegraph was invented by Samuel Morse, and sieving machine was invented by Elias Hope. Also led to more innovations. Then we had, after the Civil War in 1860s, industrialization accelerated. The first transcontinental railways was finished in 1869 to transport people, raw material, and manufacturers. The invention of electricity, very important, 1870s, by Thomas Alva Edison and Alexander Graham Bell, who invented telephone, also revolutionized things for good. The invention of electricity enabled the development of electric motors, leading to electric trams and subway trains. Look at 1870s. So the whole 20th century was on this basis that these nations grew. So you can also say that the Indian society or Indian economy, what we are facing now, the development of roads, the development of fourth industrial revolution, they have already faced it in 1870s. That's why it's called a first world country. The first roller coaster patent was also by Edwin Prescott in 1890s. Not to forget, John Wilbur Wright or Orville Wright, first plane was flown by these people, and it kind of revolutionized the way we perceive modern communication. So this was a true revolution where the first aeroplane was flown by Wright brothers, and Ford, as I give you example, Ford Model T automobile was created by Henry Ford in rest is history. We have Ford. Still, Ford is a big company. Then industrial revolution in Germany also becomes very important for various reasons, because it was Germany which was growing in a pace that was making other European powers insecure. So World War I was fought between Allied powers and Axis powers. So, and Axis powers was run by, not to forget, by Germans, and Allied were run by or were led by Britain. So these are two industrial forces, one Britain, one Germany, fighting for more resources. So coming back to it, German industrialization commenced in early 1800s with the establishment of sovereign, a custom union. Mind you, German is closer to France and also a very resource-rich country. It is also after that in 1860s when German unification took place under Ottoman Bismarck, which ultimately led to Germany becoming a superpower economically as well as politically. Let's see. So in 1871, unification of Germany under Bismarck marked the pivotal shift propelling Germany's industrial development through unified policies. Just to give you the heads up, Germany was what do you call a conglomerate of Prussia, of other small principalities before the unification. So there were 90 to 180 odd principalities, or what do you call it in India as princely states, where some kings, because it was a feudal society, there were kings, there were clergies which were influencing, and there was no sense of nationalism. It ultimately came up with the policies of Ottoman Bismarck, and then by Hitler. So just to give you the heads up, we'll take German unification in separate chapter, because it needs to be taught, because otherwise we won't be understanding World War I. So the availability of natural resources, the Ruhr Valley is iron ore, and these areas propelled the steel and coal mining industries. So after the British industrialization, after American industrialization, we are coming to the German industrialization. So these nations, Western nations, are growing gradually in isolation. They are seeing each other. There's a kind of insecurity among each other. So they are growing politically, unifying each other, making diplomatic headways with each other. Gradually they are improving their infrastructure, and there's an extensive railway network which was pivotal, streamlining transport of raw materials and finished goods, bolstering trade and commerce. So contribution of Bismarck becomes very important. His policies, his diplomatic policies, facilitated economic unification, very important, promoted heavy industries through subsidies and tariffs, encouraged infrastructure development, and supported technological advancements, providing conducive environment for rapid industrialization. What is the time period? 1870s. It was only after this then we see gradual insecurities, and then World War I in 1940. So when we talk about these things, then there is no fact which is isolated. Every fact is associated with another. German unification is also associated with German industrialization. French Revolution is also associated with the rise of uh, Napoleon, and British industrialization is also associated with British war with Americas and American War of Independence. So everything is interlinked. You just have to have an idea of the chronology which is going on. That's why I'm giving you the time periods time and again. So why were Germans unifying themselves? So I told you France and German forces were sharing borders with each other. The thread of military conflict between France motivated the Germany to strengthen its industries, particularly in the production of steel, coal, armaments, and enhance its military capabilities. Mind you, it was that period where all the nations were rising economically, and there was a sense of insecurity between all these nations because they were sharing borders, unlike America, which was kind of isolated. But after the Second World War, there was a kind of technological advancements, and one cannot forget Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and before that, the Pearl Harbor incident. We'll come to that. Adoption of new technologies by Germany. Industrial progress was fueled by adopting new technologies like steel processes and chemical and engineering advancements. Still, in the modern world, the technology of Germany is said to be one of the best. Entrepreneurial spirit and industrial leadership also played a very important role. Then we come to Japan. So if we are talking about Hiroshima and Nagasaki, so let's see where the story is starting. So it starts off by 1880s, 1860s, where we see there is a Meiji government and we see Meiji restoration. What is Meiji restoration? Meiji is a powerful house after the samurais who get the power and who ultimately lead to technological. What happens is, to cut the story short, that what they do is they send their students to West. In 1860s, after seeing Germany being developed, after seeing Russia being developed, after seeing US being developed, the intellectuals, the forefathers of Japan thought that now what we have to do is we also have to get to their eye level, and we'll also have to progress. So these Meijis, they make certain amendments to their constitution and they try to make more technological innovations. And on the right, you can see the picture. It's, rest as history. We see the innovations in technologies, be it space, be it mobile technology, be it television technologies, or any technologies for that matter. Japanese and Germans are the best, even we say today. The biggest example is Samsung, Mitsubishi's, and what's not. Then we see what is the impact of industrial revolution. It can be having positive impacts and negative impacts. Let's look at the positive one. So it transformed the society in various ways. What is the political impact? It expanded the democracy. Very important point. The industrial things, what they did was kind of change the way we look at the society. How democracy is, as we see that with the people, for the people, and the point I'm trying to make is it made headways to the people who wanted opportunities. They rightly get it. So they get the opportunities, they get the wherewithal. There is a kind of professional bourgeoisies which is coming up. These bourgeoisies, when coming up, change the way we look at the societies, grew, made the society grow, and It also expanded the way the thinkers used to think in French Revolution, the democracy, the equality. So it came up in a right direction, everything amalgamated. So there was a right to vote which got in the first Reform Act of 1832. And what is the things which were happening before French Revolution and American Revolution? So we have rights for men and rights of men, which ultimately led to these being taken in the Indian preamble also as fundamental rights or preamble. Anyway, emergence of labor unions also took place. Workers were inspired to combine and organize themselves for the rights, and this gave rise to trade unions. So because there was a kind of congregation, there was a kind of a sense of groupism which led to more bargaining of these people, starting from the trade unions in Britain. The right to strike formed a very important part. Then we see a shift of power from industrialization brought to the rise of capitalism. As a result, small number of industries came to possess vast wealth and power. At the same time, factory workers received pitiful wages, sparking discussions about economic inequalities. Well, in the Das Kapital in Karl Marx, or in other texts which specifically talk about socialism, which was very much prevalent in Russia and in other circles of Eastern Europe, which ultimately led to Russian Revolution in 1918. We'll get to that also. There was a kind of inequality in the society. So this was something which was negative impact of industrial revolution in Europe. There was a class of section of people who were very rich, and there was a section which were nowhere, which was working in those factories for 12 to 15 to 18 hours, and who was not getting equally paid. So leaders like Karl Marx, Engels were talking about their political rights, because there was a kind of inequality which was rising up. There was a kind of nationalism and imperialism going on. So if you understand growth of imperialism, as an industrialized country sought to expand their territories aggressively, they are not thinking about other nations. They're just getting into other nations and wanting more rights. Doesn't matter they have to invade there, doesn't matter they have to use military power. That's called imperialism. Social impact. So there was a kind of class divide. So we see bourgeoisie. Bourgeoisie means the elite class, and there was bankers. On the below we had a working class, which was called so these section of the society, these working class people or proletariat were hopping for 2 days wages or 2 times food. So what was happening is there was a kind of inequality which was going on. In 1848 revolution, this was the impact when in Britain there was a kind of riot which was happening, and it was Karl Marx who was said to be have infuriated, or who had made people aware so that they should revolt, because they were exploited to a greater extent. After that we see the labor reforms being coming up in Europe. Because these machines were very crude, there was a lot of children who used to cut their hands, who used to cut their feet. So this was very inhuman conditions. So economic impact was rise of capitalism, rise of banking system, rise of trade. What was impact on India? Impact was rise of British economic power, and it led to deindustrialization in India. There was influx of British manufacturing goods, undermining the local production. So there was kind of deindustrialization. I've explained this to you. I again reiterate this fact that what led to industrialization in Europe ultimately led to deindustrialization in India. So we had a great demand. Our goods were in great demand in Britain in 18th century, but after Industrial Revolution took place in Europe, in Britain very specifically, in particular, then they started producing more, and we started becoming more we were in a declining path. So ultimately this was the impact. Social impact: rise of new social classes, industrialists and workers, urban ghettos were seen, Western educated ideas were introduced. This was kind of a positive influencing Indian societies. The Chitpavan Brahmins of Maharashtra, Bombay side, the Bhadraloks of Bengal, the Chettis or the Brahmins of Madras or Chennai, all people rose up, and ultimately the leaders used to come from it. So political impact, if I could tell you. So the political impact is strengthening the British colonial rule and exploitation of resources in India was the direct consequence of Industrial Revolution. It also sparked the rise of Indian nationalist and national movement and a demand for self-government. No representation without taxation. So what they said was there should not be any representation without taxation. In 1890s, this was a dominant theme. Where was it being inspired from? It was being inspired from the American War of Independence, from the French Revolution. So these are the broad contours on which I wanted to talk to you. Then we had infrastructure impact, where we see railways, roads and communication ways being developed, but by and large ideological, economic, political and social impacts become very important. So today what we did was, in a nutshell, if I could wrap it down for you, we talked about the Industrial Revolution in Europe, to very particular Germany, Britain, and we also talked about Industrial Revolution in Americas. Then we slightly got into the eastern part of Asia, that was Japan, and then we got into the impact it was having on the world. To be very specific, the impact it was having on the Indian society, Indian economy. So this is it from our side. Thank you so much.